The Wild Boar and the Fox. A wild boar was sharpening his tusks busily against the stump of a tree when a fox happened by. Now the fox was always looking for a chance to make fun of his neighbors, so he made a great show of looking anxiously about, as if in fear of some hidden enemy. But the boar kept right on with his work.
"Why are you doing that?"
asked the fox at last with a grin.
"There isn't any danger that I can see."
"True enough,"
replied the boar.
"but when danger does come, there will not be time for such work as this. My weapons will have to be ready for use then, or I shall suffer for it."
Preparedness for war is the best guarantee of peace. The ass, the fox, and the lion. An ass and a fox had become close comrades, and were constantly in each other's company. While the ass cropped a fresh bit of greens, the fox would devour a chicken from the neighboring farmyard, or a bit of cheese filched from the dairy. One day the pair unexpectedly met a lion. The ass was very much frightened, but the fox calmed his fears.
"I will talk to him,"
he said. So the fox walked boldly up to the lion.
"Your Highness,"
he said in an undertone, so the ass could not hear him.
"I've got a fine scheme in my head. If you promise not to hurt me, I will lead that foolish creature yonder into a pit where he can't get out, and you can feast at your pleasure."
The lion agreed, and the fox returned to the ass.
"I made him promise not to hurt us,"
said the fox.
"but come, I know a good place to hide till he's gone."
So the fox led the ass into a deep pit. But when the lion saw that the ass was his for the taking, he first of all struck down the traitor fox. Traitors may expect treachery. The birds, the beasts, and the bat. The birds and the beasts declared war against each other. No compromise was possible, and so they went at it tooth and claw. It is said the quarrel grew out of the persecution the race of geese suffered at the teeth of the fox family. The beasts, too, had cause for fight. The eagle was constantly pouncing on the hare, and the owl dined daily on mice. It was a terrible battle. Many a hare and many a mouse died. Chickens and geese fell by the score, and the victor always stopped for a feast. Now the bat family had not openly joined either side. They were a very politic race. So when they saw the birds getting the better of it, they were birds for all there was in it. But when the tide of battle turned, they immediately sided with the beasts. When the battle was over, the conduct of the bats was discussed at the peace conference. Such deceit was unpardonable, and birds and beasts made common cause to drive out the bats. And since then, the bat family hides in dark towers and deserted ruins, flying out only in the night. The deceitful have no friends. The lion, the bear, and the fox. Just as a great bear rushed to seize a stray kid, a lion leaped from another direction upon the same prey. The two fought furiously for the prize, until they had received so many wounds that both sank down, unable to continue the battle. Just then, a fox dashed up, and seizing the kid, made off with it as fast as he could go, while the lion and the bear looked on in helpless rage.
"How much better it would have been,"
they said,
"to have shared in a friendly spirit."
Those who have all the toil do not always get the profit. The Wolf and the Lamb. A stray lamb stood drinking early one morning on the bank of a woodland stream. That very same morning a hungry wolf came by farther up the stream, hunting for something to eat. He soon got his eyes on the lamb. As a rule, Mr. Wolf snapped up such delicious morsels without making any bones about it. But this lamb looked so very helpless and innocent that the wolf felt he ought to have some kind of an excuse for taking its life.
How dare you paddle around in my stream and stir up all the mud?
He shouted fiercely.
You deserve to be punished severely for your rashness.
But, Your Highness,
replied the trembling lamb,
do not be angry. I cannot possibly muddy the water you are drinking up there. Remember, you are upstream and I'm downstream.
You do muddy it,
retorted the wolf savagely.
and besides, I have heard that you told lies about me last year.
How could I have done so?
Pleaded the lamb.
I wasn't born until this year.
If it wasn't you, it was your brother.
I have no brothers.
Well then,
Snarled the wolf.
it was someone in your family anyway. But no matter who it was, I do not intend to be talked out of my breakfast.
And without more words, the wolf seized the poor lamb and carried her off to the forest. The tyrant can always find an excuse for his tyranny. The unjust will not listen to the reasoning of the innocent. The Wolf and the Sheep. A wolf had been hurt in a fight with a bear. He was unable to move and could not satisfy his hunger and thirst. A sheep passed by near his hiding place, and the wolf called to him.
Please fetch me a drink of water.
He begged.
That might give me a strength enough so I can get me some solid food.
Solid food?
Said the sheep.
That means me, I suppose. If I should bring you a drink, it would only serve to wash me down your throat. Don't talk to me about a drink.
A knave's hypocrisy is easily seen through. The Hares and the Frogs. Hares, as you know, are very timid. The least shadow sends them scurrying in fright to a hiding place. Once they decided to die rather than live in such misery. But while they were debating how best to meet death, they thought they heard a noise, and in a flash were scampering off to the warren. On the way they passed a pond where a family of frogs was sitting among the reeds on the bank. In an instant the startled frogs were seeking safety in the mud.
Look!
Cried the hare.
Things are not so bad after all, for here are creatures who are even afraid of us.
However unfortunate we may think we are, there is always someone worse off than ourselves. The Fox and the Stork. The fox one day thought of a plan to amuse himself at the expense of the stork, at whose odd appearance he was always laughing.
You must come and dine with me today,
He said to the stork, smiling to himself at the trick he was going to play. The stork gladly accepted the invitation and arrived in good time and with a very good appetite. For dinner the fox served soup, but it was set out in a very shallow dish, and all the stork could do was to wet the very tip of his bill. Not a drop of soup could he get, but the fox lapped it up easily, and, to increase the disappointment of the stork, he made a great show of enjoyment. The hungry stork was much displeased at the trick, but he was a calm, even-tempered fellow, and saw no good in flying into a rage. Instead, not long afterward, he invited the fox to dine with him in turn. The fox arrived promptly at the time that he had been set, and the stork served a fish dinner that had a very appetizing smell. But it was served in a tall jar with a very narrow neck. The stork could easily get at the food with his long bill, but all the fox could do was to lick the outside of the jar and sniff at the delicious odor. And when the fox lost his temper, the stork said calmly, "Do not play tricks on your neighbors unless you can stand the same treatment yourself." The Travelers and the Sea. Two travelers were walking along the seashore. Far out they saw something riding on the waves.
Look!
Said one.
A great ship rising from distant lands, bearing rich treasures.
The object they saw came ever nearer the shore.
No,
Said the other.
that is not a treasure ship. That is some fisherman's skiff, with a day's catch of savory fish.
Still nearer came the object. The waves washed it up on shore.
It is a chest of gold lost from some wreck.
They cried. Both travelers rushed to the beach, but there they found nothing but a water-soaked log. Do not let your hopes carry you away from reality. The Wolf and the Lion. A wolf had stolen a lamb and was carrying it off to his lair to eat it. But his plans were very much changed when he met a lion, who, without making any excuses, took the lamb away from him. The wolf made off to a safe distance and then said in a much injured tone,
You have no right to take my property like that.
The lion looked back, but as the wolf was too far away to be taught a lesson without too much inconvenience, he said,
Your property? Did you buy it, or did a shepherd make you a gift of it? Pray tell me, how did you get it?
What is evil won is evil lost. The Stag and His Reflection. A stag, drinking from a crystal spring, saw himself mirrored in the clear water. He greatly admired the graceful arch of his antlers, but he was very much ashamed of his spindling legs.
How can it be
He sighed.
that I should be cursed with such legs when I have so magnificent a crown?
At that moment he scented a panther, and in an instant was bounding away through the forest. But as he ran, his wide-spreading antlers caught in the branches of the trees, and soon the panther overtook him. Then the stag perceived that the legs of which he was so ashamed would have saved him had it not been for the useless ornaments on his head. We often make much of the ornamental and despise the useful.